So then tell me this, when you first started out in the Bitcoin mining industry, you said it was about 2, 3 years ago, correct?
Yeah.
So it was more so recently. So because I'm not as well versed in this, so it's like, tell me how it was, the Bitcoin mining industry 2, 3 years ago, and how it is now. Has it changed quickly? Is it about the same, or what is going on with it?
Not a lot has changed. Now, some things have changed. We've seen hash rate growing exponentially. I think when I got into Bitcoin, we were at 700, 650 exahash, somewhere around there, pushing up on that Zeta hash, might even be over a Zeta hash right now. So the mining network is definitely growing, which reduces the overall reward that you get as a single miner. So the competition is getting more and more fierce. Definitely. We've had a lot of innovations in mining hardware. When I first got in, the S19 was like the big powerhouse of the industry. Now we've got the S21 hydro units, which are the powerhouse,
Wow.
but the S23 hydro units are being announced now. So like we're exponentially
Those
growing.
are water cooled?
Yes, water
Wow.
cooled units. They
Okay.
have much higher efficiencies. We're
Wow.
getting down into like I want to say 8, 9 joules per terahash. 4, 5, 600 terahash a second. So like much larger machines. But the problem with these machines is they're not viable for the plebs. Like we at home are not, like, we don't have three phase. We don't have the ability to set up the infrastructure to do this. So it's moving more and more towards like industrial mining applications
Got it.
and less towards the home miners. On the home miner front, the heat punks didn't like we did not have a place to go. Like we were all kind of building inside of our garages, like doing heat punk stuff, like turning Bitcoin miners into heaters, that kind of thing. But we didn't have like a resource, a place to go to combine our ideas and starting to try to grow the heat punk initiative. That changed. Like now we have the space in Denver. They're doing really great things for the heat punks. Tyler Stevens, you've got Schnitzel, you have a lot of people doing really cool stuff when it comes to Bitcoin mining infrastructure on the heat reuse side. Um, and then like BitAxe, everybody has heard about the BitAxe. If you've been in Bitcoin for, a significant amount of time, you know about the BitAxe. When I got into Bitcoin mining, the BitAxe didn't exist. Okay, you had home mini miners, but none of them had like significantly caught a block yet or did anything. Like they weren't open source. They were different. And so now today you have these tiny 1 chip, 2 chip, 5 chip units that are open source. You can back engineer the code, you can rewrite the code, you can build them yourself. And they've proven that home miners can play the Bitcoin mining lottery and actually catch a block from time to time. And we're seeing the frequency of those blocks coming in more and more. I think it was just yesterday that a home miner with I want to say it was the Nerdax Q++ Hydro unit, one
Mhm,
of
mhm.
those caught a block. I mean, they were mining to a
Wow.
pool, but nonetheless, that, multi-chip unit caught a block. And we're seeing this happen more and more, which is a good thing. If you think about like the trajectory of like moving into the future with mining getting more and more centralized in these large industrial mining farms, if you want to get your transactions into a block and let's say Mara doesn't agree with the way that your transactions are formulated with what you're buying and selling, they can just opt out. Like they're like, we're not going to push your transactions through. But if home miners are mining blocks like once a month or once every couple months, then we know without a shadow of a doubt that our transactions are going to go through. They might take 30 days for the transactions to go through, but
Mhm.
we're not going to be controlled. Basically, our transactions aren't going to be controlled. And if Mara or Riot or Iron, if they're these large industrial pubcos working in the United States, what can the government do? Like, we hope that it won't happen, but the government can come and say, well, Mara, you work for us now and we'll let you keep some of it, but you work for us and we're going to tell you what transactions we want you to push through. And by the way, Trevor Bello, this guy over here, he's doing some stuff that we just don't like. So you're going to freeze all his transactions. You see where I'm going with
Wow.
this?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So
Control.
we've seen this growth in the home mining sector where these machines that didn't exist before are now being created, being developed on, being worked on, engineered, where the home miners actually play a role. It's not a giant role, like we're not going to beat out Mara in the blocks that we mine, but we have the ability to play a part. for lack of a better phrase. And the heat reuse sector is doing the same thing. I mean, we're taking these large industrial miners, breaking them down into smaller parts, 1, 2, 3 miners, and we're finding ways to integrate them into our homes. So we can't do it with 3-phase units, but if you have a single phase Bitcoin miner, we can turn that miner into a 110 volt miner, or we can build out 220 electrical infrastructure that mines Bitcoin that you can connect those miners to.
Gotcha. You mentioned 3-phase, and that immediately took me back to my engineering days when I used to work in industrial facilities, and I used to have to collect electrical power off industrial sized air compressors. And I was like, is that what he's talking about right now? I just like had a weird flashback. I was like, wow, this is okay.
Yeah.
This is big.
Well, and most houses in America, like I would say no house in America, unless you've specifically had it built out, has
No, why would you
3-phase. Like, why would you need 3-phase? Exactly. That's ridiculous.
No. Now you could say it because it's like, yes, I have an industrial sized Bitcoin miner. Give me 3-phase.
Right. But the cost to install 3-phase power is way outside the means for most people. I mean, to install a 3-phase setup in your house, you need a new panel. You need everything behind the meter to be beefed up so that you can actually handle that. And then all of the electrical infrastructure in your house from the 3-phase on needs to be built out. And so you're looking at probably like $10,000, $12,000 just to get the meter, not to mention like the actual like infrastructure in your house. So it's not cost beneficial to do that. So 3-phase hydro units, we're not building those out. But we do have manufacturers who are building single-phase hydro units. We're seeing things like this happen. And so it's kind of like this two-sided thing. You've got some manufacturers that are moving towards 3-phase that are making it more and more difficult for home miners to compete. And then you have other manufacturers that see the heat reuse industry and see us home miners like, we want these single-phase units. You see them building those out too.
Just for the audience, like define Mara and who they are and what they exactly do.
So most people have heard of Riot or Mara or Iron. These are just large industrial mining facilities. Riot has a 800 megawatt mining facility down in somewhere in Texas. They're working on a 1.2 gigawatt mining facility. Like, these are massive Bitcoin mining farms, and they openly trade on the stock market. You can go and buy Mara stock. You can go buy Riot stock. They're just large industrial miners who have been around for a long time, and they've been able to grow their mining operations to an extent that, like, small Bitcoin mining operators, they have no chance of competing with somebody like that. So yeah, that's kind of.
And then what percentage of the market do these 3 companies have, or these vast, large, publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies?
I don't have numbers on that.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, but I know that it's
completely fine.
I know that it's
like
significant. They hold, like, Riot holds like a majority of the computing power.
Really?
Yes, they have a large amount. I don't know if it's like 30% or more, but you add Mara, you add Riot, you add CleanSpark into the mix, like you're well over like 30% of the hashing power.
Got you. So then kind of throwing these questions out there, if Riot just decided, hey, like we're just gonna stop mining Bitcoin at this point, what would happen then?
That'd be great, because because the hash power, the hash rate would decrease significantly, making it easier for us to mine blocks, which would increase our productivity as home miners. So that'd be awesome if they just decided to stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
the way that the Bitcoin network works, you have this thing called the difficulty adjustment. Most people have heard about it, but they don't know what it is. The difficulty adjustment is this algorithm that automatically every 2016 blocks changes the difficulty up or down based on the last 2016 blocks of hash rate data. So if the hash rate is increasing, the Bitcoin algorithm, the difficulty adjustment algorithm, adjusts it so that it's constantly right here. Because the more hash rate that comes online, the faster blocks come through. And the idea is that we want blocks to come out at a steady rate of 10 minutes. So if there's less hash power on the network, it takes longer to mine a block. So they reduce the difficulty, makes it easier to mine blocks, and that means more people are finding, like, it's this algorithm that's constantly trying to maintain this level here, versus like if we didn't have the difficulty adjustment, all the blocks would have been mined already. You know what I mean? Because Mara, CleanSpark, Riot, they would have just like brought all this hash power online, and there would never be like this equal footing for us. And so the difficulty kind of just adjusts that down. And so if Riot stopped mining today, shut all their miners off, we would probably see like 300 to 400 exahash come offline, and all of a sudden it would be significantly easier to mine blocks.
Right. Okay. So this definitely makes sense because I remember back in like 2012 and whatnot, people were mining on their computers.
Yeah,
They were able to
because the
mine on their
hash
computer.
power, yeah, the hash rate was
Okay.
so low.
So this makes sense because the less miners you have, okay, so easier to mine, more miners you have, it's going to be harder because your level of competition.
And that is exactly why we have these
Oh,
miners today that are massive industrial miners versus like when someone says like you can't mine Bitcoin on your computer, like that's horseshit. You can mine Bitcoin on your computer. Is it economically viable? No. Are you going to fry your CPU because you're working it overboard? Yes. Like it's not economically viable, but you can still mine Bitcoin on your CPU. It's not profitable. It's not economically viable. You're going to blow up your computer. So like that's why people say don't mine Bitcoin on your computer.
yeah, that's fair. All right, audience members, what he said, don't
Don't
do
do
it.
it. I mean, unless you want to blow up your computer, don't do it.
Don't do it. And then real quick, define hash rate for us because you've used that terminology a lot. What
Yeah,
does that mean?
so I mentioned that a Bitcoin miner is just a computer that turns electrical energy into computational energy. That computational energy is hash rate. So Bitcoin miners, they're defined as, 220 terahash. They're defined as, like 300 terahash machines. That is the hash rate that the machine produces per second. And each hash is a guess, one guess towards that number, that nonce that I mentioned way like at the beginning. That's one guess. So if you have a 200 terahash machine, it's like 200 times like a million. So it's like 200 million. I might be off on those numbers a little bit, but that is how many guesses per second your miner is
Wow.
doing to try and find a block.
You said 200 million.
Yeah, something like that. It could be 200 trillion.
I mean, regardless, like
It's
you
a
had
big
me at
ass
200
number.
million. You had me at 200 million. I was like, okay, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Versus like back in the day, your CPU could only do like 100 or even less. It was like 5 gigahash or something like that. So like probably like 5,000 guesses a second versus today having
wow.
like 500 million guesses per second.
So that is a significant amount. Significant amount. Okay. Okay, so Trevor, take us through your podcast. What exactly motivated you to start Build a Mind podcast? What is the objective of it? Like, please take us through that.
So, I am a intrinsically like thoughtful person. Think about things. I try to understand stuff. Sometimes I can be a little bit dense and understanding things takes a little bit of time, but I like to have conversations. I like to talk to people. What we're doing here right now is like we're bouncing ideas off of each other or just, communicating our points, our views, our thoughts. And this kind of helps us understand each other on an individual basis. And so for me, I got into podcasting because like I felt like I had something to say or I had something that I wanted to learn and I didn't quite know how to do it. But I'm also like the type of person, it's like I can be on camera, I can talk to people, I can have these conversations, and maybe what I have to say isn't like the best or most qualified conversation, but it might help someone. And so I want to start having these conversations. So, I kind of got a mic, I got the computer, like let's just start a podcast. Around that time I had gotten involved with Scott Offord, who is the CEO of the company that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, hey, like I really like your presence, I really like the attitude that you have, you're kind of driven, you want to have these conversations. How about we fund a podcast for you? We'll buy
Wow.
you all the equipment, we'll pay for your studio, we'll pay you to do it. And I was like, that's a good idea. I like the sound of that.
Oh,
And so the Build a Mind podcast was created. And where I come into Bitcoin, as you probably can tell from this whole entire conversation, is like, I don't care for the industrial mining operations. I don't care about the unit economics of like, why should I mine Bitcoin or can I mine Bitcoin? I care about helping people understand why Bitcoin mining is important to the network as a whole. I believe in Bitcoin and I believe in Bitcoin mining. And I also believe that if you want to mine Bitcoin, if you want to play a part in the Bitcoin mining network, you can. You can figure out how to do it. You can do it from a BitX. You can do it from a heat reuse standpoint. You can build a Bitcoin mining farm if you want to. So where I see me coming into this role is like, everyone has a voice, everyone has a perspective. And if I give you my perspective, if I lend my voice to the conversation, you might pick something up from me that has a downstream effect on the way that you perceive the world, the way that you look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin mining, your own worth, your own energy. And this is something that Bitcoin has taught me, is that like we all trade our life force, our energy, our time for money. And when that money is fundamentally broken, you're throwing away your life force. And people don't like to look at it that
Whoa.
way. But
Whoa. Deep. We're getting deep.
if you're throwing away your life force, your time means nothing. And that means your life means nothing. And people
Woo.
don't want to hear that.
Woo,
People don't want to
buddy.
hear that. But if you're saving and you're putting your energy into something that cannot be debased, cannot be stolen from you, cannot be fundamentally broken, then all of a sudden your life means a whole hell of a lot more, and you can choose to do with it what you want to do with it. Now, Bitcoin mining takes that whole dynamic just a little bit further, because instead of just partaking in the network, you're participating in the network. You are not only a consumer, you are now a producer. And that changes the way, one more time, it's like one more notch in the belt of like you becoming a sovereign individual and you having your own thoughts and you thinking individually. It takes it one step further. And you can play the tiniest part in that. You can run your own node, you can run a BitX, and you are participating in the network. You are producing in the network. And that is what I see the Build a Mine podcast as, is a way to have these conversations, talk to people who are doing really cool things, and just give a little bit of perspective from my own life into somebody else's life.
And that wraps up another episode of Bitcoinomics. Like, comment, and subscribe, and join us next time.